Hi class, let me give you some tips about how to use a financial calculator. Financial calculators are not required in this course, but I know some of you prefer to use them, especially if you're going to use them in your future classes. It may be a good idea to get familiar with and get comfortable with financial calculators. So you can use any calculator you want, including scientific calculators. But if you're using a financial calculator like this, the one I'm using is Texas Instruments BA2 Plus. Um, with any calculator, one of the most important things is the number of decimal places. So that's the first thing you should be aware of, and you should be careful with, is how many decimal places your calculator is set to show. And you want to show enough, all right? Because if you are doing a multi-step problem, and this is not a good idea, advisable, but if you are writing some of the intermediate answers down, you don't want to round them, which would cause a rounding error at the end. So just it's good practice to show sufficient decimal places. I like to show at least 5. Here it's set to 6 decimal places. If yours is set to a smaller number, the way you take care of it in a calculator like this, and others may be a little bit different, but you can Google your calculator, and if you Google something like decimal places, change decimal places, you're going to find exactly how to do it. But here I need to change this format, right? And it's in yellow, so that requires me to press this yellow button, which says second, and then go to format, and you can see decimal is set to 6. So I can change this to 5, for example, and then I can do enter. If I press enter, and now it's set to 5 decimal places. And let me go back to 6. So I do second dot, which is format, change it to 6, and enter. All right, so now it's back to 6. So that's very important. Second thing that's really important in a calculator like this, which does one calculation at a time, and you can't really do many parentheses and build up a formula like you can do with some of the scientific calculators, it is important to use the memory of the calculator to store numbers so you don't have to write them down and do a rounding error. Even with many decimal places, sometimes you can make a large rounding error, especially if you're dividing a number with a very, very, very small number in the denominator. So it's good to get used to. For example, if I want to store 45.226, I found it from a calculation. I do STO, store, and then I have 9 different places I can store this. So for example, let me store this at 4, right? And then later on, I can recall it, right? Or I can 6 divided by 9, for example. I can store 3, right? And then later on, I do stuff, and then I can do recall 3 and get it back. So that's important. So now, if you're going to use the time value of money functions of a calculator like this, some important tips about that. And again, you can Google, there are nice websites on how to use each financial calculator and its time value of money functions. But these are the main buttons, right? You're going to use this and above. And the most important thing is, so tip number 1 with time value of money functions on a financial calculator is, before doing anything, clear time value of money, CLR TVM here at the top. That is going to reset the parameters that you may have used for a previous question. So you don't want those to spill over to the new one, and it can really mess things up. So for example, if I recall, say, is there a last number n I had used? Yes, there is actually 13 right there. So I want to clear this. Whenever I start a new question, I want to clear. So I did second FV clear TVM. So now if I recall n, it's 0, right? So I'm starting with a blank slate. So that's tip number 1. Very, very important. Tip number 2, if you're working with annuities, if you are going to use an annuity due, if you're going to do an annuity due problem with beginning of period cash flows, you have to tell the calculator. The calculator has to know, right? And then if you set it to beginning of period, so annuity due, then if you're going to use it for an annuity problem, you have to change that. So this is one of the difficulties of using financial calculators, is have to remember that. And if you forget that, you're going to make a big mistake, which is why I don't teach to financial calculators. But so if you're going to use it anyway, so here is beginning, BGN, right? So that's the button, the yellow, that's going to shift between end of period and beginning of period format. So here, because it's in yellow, we do second PMT, above PMT is beginning. So it's right now set to end, right? So this would be used, right now I can use it to solve annuity problems. If I'm going to do an annuity due problem, I need to change it. It says here, see, you can use the set button to change. Set is here in yellow above enter. So I do second enter. Now it can be beginning, but I need to quit to go back to the calculator and set it at beginning. So I'm going to do second CPT, which is quit. So now it's set for annuity due, and you can see here written BGN. So that's a reminder that this is set for annuity due. And if you forget this, and now we have to do an annuity problem, and you forget this, you're going to get a wrong answer. So you have to be really on top of this. This is tip number 2. Make sure annuity versus annuity due, beginning versus end period cash flows, that is set to the right one when you're working on a problem. So let's say we're going to do annuity due now. So we got to go again, second PMT. We need to change this by doing the set thing here, second enter, and now second quit. All right, and we are back to annuity. Now we have these. So for a standard annuity type of problem, for single cash flows, this is not really necessary. Single cash flows are very easy to use as formulas. But I will occasionally, when I'm solving things, I'm going to also show you the financial calculator way of solving those. It's useful in annuities where the formulas start to get big, and you may prefer to use the financial calculator if you have one. So in those cases, you just enter a bunch of things. You can enter, for example, number of periods, the interest rate, and say the payments, and then you can compute either the PV or the FV, right? You can solve for the present value or the future value of that annuity. Now, one thing that's very, very important to be careful about is when you have non-annual payments, right? Non-annual payments. How do you factor that? And the rule with financial calculators, so this is tip number 3 for financial calculators, is everything here needs to be per period. So if your period is, say, monthly, when you're entering N, this needs to be not the number of years, but this needs to be N times M, number of periods. So directly you need to enter number of periods. Similarly, I over Y needs to be the periodic rate. So I divided by M in our formulas. And the payments, PMT, this is CF in our formulas, has to be the periodic cash flow, so the monthly or weekly, whatever the period is. So for example, if I wanted to find the future value of an ordinary annuity with, say, monthly payments of 20, right? 20 is my payments, and these are monthly, and say earning an interest rate of 7%. And tip number 4 for financial calculators like this is the interest rate, you have to enter them in percentage. Not like in our formulas decimal, the financial calculator converts percentages to decimals behind the scenes. So if the interest rate is 7% and this is monthly, I need to divide 7 by 12. This is my periodic percentage rate, and I need to enter this as I over Y. This is Y is the per period, so this corresponds to our I over M. So I press this, and now it knows I over M is 0.58%, okay? And then say we said 20 per month, earning 7% per year. Let's say for how many years? Say 10 years. But again, N is not number of years, it's the number of periods. So I need to do 10 times 12 and then enter this as N, okay? And now I can find its present value if I want. So compute CPT PV. And this is number 5, tip number 5 for financial calculators and Excel. This applies to Excel as well. these numbers have signs, right? So some things are considered cash inflows, some things are considered cash outflows. So if you put payments in, meaning positive means inflow, so I entered the payments as positive, plus 20, just 20, and this tells me then the present value is going to be a negative number. It's in the opposite direction. In our formulas, we don't have negatives, positive. The formulas know the signs. They are derived for those signs with in mind. So you would find just 1,722.53 from our formulas. But the financial calculator will give the PV at the opposite sign to the payments, right? So if you're putting payments in, then this is something you can take the present value out. Or you can think of it as a present value positive, then you can do withdrawals out of it. So the payments will be negative, right? So the opposite sign. Similarly, instead of finding it, so let's set the PV to 0 again. So let's change that. We could have found the same. So the numbers are still in there. And recall N is 120. Recall interest rate 0.58333 per month. Recall payments is 20. Present value is 0. We are starting with 0. Now we can find its future value. So what would these amount to? And 3,461.70. So again, we are putting payments in, say in an account, earning that, and then we can take this future value out, cash outflow, so it's negative. Okay. So once again, important things to wrap up. Decimal places, second format, set the decimal to at least 5 or 6 decimal places. And then use store and recall to not make a rounding error. Clear TVM, cleared time value of money, so that you start with a blank slate. Change the begin end format of the time value of money, so you don't make a mistake between annuities and annuity dues. And then everything here is per period if you have non-annual cash flow problems. So you have to enter everything per period. N is the total number of cash flows. I is per period, interest rate, so on and so forth. Payments are the cash flows per period. And then the signs are important. If you put in positive payments, for example, you're going to get a negative PV or negative future value. That's what the calculator will give us. There are other things we can use this for: capital budgeting problems like NPV IRR, mixed cash flow using CF. Those are for later. When we get to those type of problems, I'll probably show you some examples of how to use the financial calculator. But for now, this is all you need to know.